Hi, I'm Blake and welcome to my bog. So today I'm expanding the main pitcher plant and horsetail grass bog. So I have already dug a little bit of a drainage ditch that will help collect some of the water as it trails off from this half circle driveway, and that little ditch will help bring that water down to this end, to the bog. So now I need to remove a bunch of this grass to give the bog just more room to expand. And so I'm going to use this straight edge and a shovel and a wheelbarrow and a bunch of elbow grease and just get that taken out. So I'm basically going to cut this up into little squares, just like I'm cutting a brownie out of a pan, and then I'm going to come back in with the straight edge shovel and remove that sod, trying just to remove basically the soil right until underneath the roots and leave as much of the ground soil that's there, because it's pretty well adapted for bog plants already. So here you can kind of see the way that I am planting my foot in place and then putting the shovel at the toe and then using the leverage of the shovel to get underneath that grass and desod it, to try and use my body weight and the leverage of the shovel as much as possible to try and make this process as ergonomic as possible. And if I had more money, you could use a mechanical solder to do this, but I don't. But if you do want to support my efforts to expand this bog and bring bog plants and native swamp plants back to my area, you can always directly support me on Venmo or CashApp. Those will be down in the description. And you can also like and subscribe to this video. I also want to give a shout out to Lemon Lot for letting us use their music in this video. You can check out their new album, Potpourri, wherever you stream music. If you want to submit music to get played on Blake's Bog blog, then you can send your music to blakesbogmusic@gmail.com, and we'll reach out to you if we want to use that music. And by we, of course, I mean just me, because it's just me here. I would be making other people help me do this. If I had other people I could be making help me do this. So I'm going to keep removing the sod until I get right up to the edge where the end of the original bog was. So basically I'm making like a triangle cut out in the yard here. And then I will add some peat moss and begin to level the bog. I will also dig out underneath the edge of the pond liner that is underneath the pitcher plants, and that is so that any water that is washing from this area that I'm creating will be able to get over the lip of that pond liner and get into the area where the plants that like to stay more wet, like the pitcher plants and some other plants that I will eventually put there, are going to stay. Eventually the pond liner will not be necessary, as these plants will continue to compress the area around them as they are super wet. And also this entire area that I'm digging in is basically clay, because it was a bog at one point in time, and most of the peat moss that was on top of that clay has washed away, and we have a thin layer of soil that has developed since then. But once you get down to this level, it's just about a ½ inch away from solid clay. So my pond liner was probably a little redundant and unnecessary, but I put it in just to be safe. So now I am leveling out this peat moss to try and create a good watershed so that the water will gently feed into the horsetails and down into the pitcher plant area, which is the wettest part of the bog at this point in time. And here we have a little zoom around of the first part of this little expansion. And last year, this is where I kind of ended the video, but I also wanted to give a preview of how this expansion allows the bog plants to creep into this new area. So here you can see a lot of weeds, which I'm currently going through and weeding, and you can get a little peep of some slutty jack-o'-lanterns on my boxers. But in between all of these weeds, this horsetail grass has continued to spread out. And as I continue to weed, you will see that there are just dozens and dozens, if not a good 100 sprouts of the horsetail already coming up in this area. So that tells me that this area is great for bog plants. And also, my horsetail has become really established and is going to spread really easily. So I am going through and weeding this really well now, but as these bog plants continue to grow and as the area continues to turn into more of a bog soil, bog environment, as the peat moss I've added has the spores that are latent inside of it come back to life and start to sprout, we'll get more sphagnum peat moss growing. And also, this horsetail grass is evergreen, and so all of the weeds that are annuals that seed themselves that come up every year, it is going to get thicker and thicker, and over time be able to more easily keep those weeds at bay. So as I'm going through and weeding, I'm not just weeding indiscriminately everything but the horsetails. I'm going through and I'm weeding out anything that is not native, but I'm leaving any things that are volunteer plants that are native. So this year I found some black-eyed Susan growing out there. There's some goldenrod. There's also some native sedges coming up, and even some Ohio papyrus popping up. And then there is also a pretty good crop of Virginia spiderwort that is coming up as well. So what we're trying to do here is tip the ecological balance in favor of those native plants so that they can begin to take advantage of the entire area and really capitalize on that space. And now that I have everything weeded, I am going back through in the drainage ditch that I added to drain to the bog, and I'm adding some gravel to help with washout. And then I'm also going to spray this gravel with a glycoside herbicide as well to help kill any of the plants that are growing in there. And then later I will come back and add rocks onto this ledge. As the bog area continues to grow, it will probably begin to sump down into the middle of this circle drive. So what I will do is slowly add retaining rocks along this edge here where I have the gravel as the ground begins to sump and sink down. And then the last step was to go through and clean up all of the dead pitchers off of these pitcher plants. It's not really necessary, but since I have such a small patch of them going on, I like to do this because it just makes the ones that are new and fresh this year look really vibrant and allows people in the neighborhood to see what is going on. When you have a lot of the dead snakeheads, they will eventually kind of form a mat around the plant that helps suppress other weeds, but when the plant's not really big enough to push all of them down to the ground, it kind of just looks like a half-dead plant. So I'm going to go in and trim out as much as I can. And there we have it all finished and set up for this year. It will continue to expand and grow. Make sure you like and subscribe to see what the next steps will be.